Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me on their fight story. This is Igdalia, and I have Joe Giannetti, the Skeletor, with us. Joe, how are you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Doing great, thank you. How did you get into martial arts?
So it's a kind of cliche story. I actually, when I was younger, hated fighting. I'm the youngest of five, so I fought my older brother all the time. But when I was in elementary school and middle school, I was a very hefty kid, and I got picked on a lot. And unfortunately, sometimes in school, teachers and
Mhm.
adults don't do stuff about it. So had to defend myself, and I got into a lot of fights growing up. Like a lot of fights. Like I've been in more fights growing up in school than I have in my MMA career. And then, eventually I got older and I found out there was a sport of MMA and I just loved watching it. Anderson Silva versus Forrest Griffin was my first fight. And seeing that fight, Anderson looks like he's in an action movie.
Mhm.
And it was one of those things where I was like, he's like, this is a serious fight, but he looks like he doesn't have a care in the world. And then when I realized you could make money and that could be a career, I was like, well, I'm not too bad at this. I've never liked it, but if I'm going to do it, I should make some money. And I fell in love with it. And, wrestling became the first sport that I really trained in as a martial art. And that was just a way for me to lose weight because it's so weight class orientated.
Mhm.
So that just kind of started off as like get healthy, lose weight. And then when I got into actually training MMA, it became focusing on becoming one of the best.
When you did wrestling, where in high school or
In high
middle
school.
school? Okay, okay. And were there any other sports that you were involved?
So growing up before high school, I played everything, like every sport. I've played baseball, soccer, hockey, football, lacrosse, basketball, and I actually tried out for the basketball team my freshman year, and I didn't make it. And then the wrestling coach came in and was like, "Hey, we need a heavyweight." I was that big, and I was like, sure. I was like, I'll try it out. And then I realized, the whole weight class thing. And I wrestled for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then the basketball coach actually came in the middle of practice and was like, listen, we had 3 guys fail off of the team. Their grades aren't good. And you were the next one on the list with good grades. Do you want to come play basketball? And I was like, oh no. I was like, we're too deep. Like I was already in love with wrestling. Like I wasn't good at it, but I loved the hard work of it. I was like, we're too deep. Like, sorry. Like I'm a wrestler now. And he was like, no, I respect that. And then, the rest was just history. I was wrestling for the next 4 years. I went down a weight class every season.
Nice. And when did you get involved in MMA?
Right after I graduated high school. So my high school didn't really have a lot of support for the wrestling team. So every year we also had a new coach. In my senior year, Justin Burrell was my head coach, who is a professional fighter.
Mhm.
And, one day we didn't have the cafeteria for practice. So he went to our athletic director and said, hey, I train at an MMA gym. We've got mats. If you can lend me one of the short buses, I could take the kids and we could practice at my gym. So he threw us all on the bus. We all went down to South Shore Sport Fighting and we ran our wrestling practice there. And, like I already knew by that point I wanted to fight one day. I had no idea about signing up, where to train, all that. And so we did our wrestling practice. And then he was like, they have a jujitsu class if you guys want to stick around. So I stuck around. I did a jujitsu class. And then I finished out my wrestling season. And then after I graduated that year, I did a wrestling camp with Justin at South Shore for the summer. And then I did grappling for like 6 months at South Shore. And then after that, I was like, all right, maybe I should try this like kickboxing thing because I got into a lot of fights, but I had no idea how to strike. So I was like, it's probably time to learn that stuff.
So you you went to South Shore. That's how you were introduced to it.
Yeah, Justin brought all of us.
Did anybody else join with you?
A couple of our wrestlers stuck around for a bit, and then during the summer after the wrestling camp, they kind of faded off. They stuck around for like a couple jujitsu classes here and there, but nobody like consistently.
Okay. And you said that you could make money off of it, right? So at what
Mhm.
point did you realize that you weren't going to make money until you were a professional?
Pretty quickly because I didn't know that amateurs didn't get paid. And then, I went pro and then I was like, oh, pros don't really get paid that much either. But by that point, I had kind of already learned the other avenues of making money with
Mhm.
the sport. Like, you could, when you gain a certain amount of knowledge, you can pass it on private lessons, you build a brand, you can get sponsorships, sell tickets, stuff like that. So that's something that as an amateur, I started focusing on so that it's more worth it as a pro. And I don't feel that stress because I feel like some guys get so stressed. Like I got to make the UFC and make money now, now, now. And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm still focused on getting better. And that support I have from merch and ticket sales and sponsors helps me slow down and stay focused on getting better. And I'm not making $1 million, but I'm making more than if I didn't sell t-shirts and tickets or anything.
So you aren't making $1 million.
And unfortunately, no.
No. Okay. So when you, so I'm trying to like, you're currently 11, 4, and 1. 11, 4, and 1.
Yes.
Out of all of the fights that you've had, which one stands out the most? Whether you on, it doesn't matter if it was the best, the worst, or something.
Honestly, these last two stand out the most equal. And I've said this to a couple people because my last camp when I fought Darius, I was out at AKA for 8 weeks. And then it was the best camp of my life, the best preparation. I had money in my bank account, not a lot, but I had money in my bank account. I was able to pay my bills at home while supporting myself in California. My weight cut went great. My mental space was perfect. And I obviously performed great. Everybody was like, wow, he's making the improvements he needs. And then, this last fight camp was the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where I was there for less than half the time. I wasn't able to get the work I needed because, I got a staph infection and stuff. I have no money and my mental health was declining rapidly. And, my friends and my girlfriend were like just keeping me afloat enough to stay in the fight without pulling out. And then I come home, I'm heavier than I want to be. My weight cut goes south and I miss weight. So I'm on two opposite ends of the spectrum. And then come fight night, something that I've struggled with in the past is I have to throw it all out. None of it matters. We're here to fight and we got to get the job done. And a couple of years ago, before the Ultimate Fighter finale, even right after, I wouldn't be able to persevere through that. And so that was something I kept saying to myself before I walked out. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, right now matters. And I went out there and I didn't perform like I wanted to, but I performed well enough. Everybody's like, that was a great fight. Like, you looked great. This looked good. I know what I need to work on and I know I'll be better next time, but I also am proud of myself for performing that well with the circumstances prior.
Yeah, that's a lot of things that people don't understand is that, fighters, you guys are in your fight camp and you're doing all this, but you also have to deal with everything else that happens. Whether, you were dealing with a staph infection, which caused you not to be able to train as much as you normally do. And that's something that people just don't understand. And on top of that, like, you could have backed out of your fight, but you decided not to. Why? What was going through your mind when you made that decision of, you know what, I'm just going to go through with it?
The biggest thing was I had already pulled out against Jacob Bond with a staph infection. So it's like, if I do it again, everybody's like, like either he keeps getting staph infections or he's ducking them. And, and it's a lose-lose. People are going to talk bad about me either way. So it was one of those things. It's like, I can either have people talk bad about me and not fight, or I can have people talk bad about me and do my best. Because at that point, I still thought I could make the weight. I just thought it would be a hell of a lot harder. At this moment, I still know I could have made the weight if I had timed it out correctly. I believe that because I was still sweating when I ran out of time. So if I was able to time that a little bit better with where I was at, I would have made it. So like I said, it's an error that I made that I'll correct moving forward if I get stuck in that situation. Yeah. But it was one of those things where, and I've been really trying to focus on it, is being my best on my worst day. And like I said, when I fought Darius, it was my best camp, best preparation, and it was my best night, and I had my best performance. And so in the locker room, I just kept telling myself, this is your worst night. This is your worst preparation, but it's still time to do your best. Like, be as good as you can be on your worst night. And now that I know that I can, I'm way more confident moving forward into any fight, because now I know, good camp, bad camp, I'm still one of the best fighters around.
Yeah. And like you mentioned your last two fights, and I feel like in your last three fights, like, you've changed. Like, I'm always like a mindset type of person, and I feel like your mindset changed where people could see, or at least I noticed, like, your body language, your physical appearance, like the way you walked out. Like, before, you used to be confident, but this confidence was different. You know what I mean? Like the way you carried yourself, and it's like you were confident, but you weren't stressed. You were confident, but you weren't. I don't even know really how to explain it, but
It's I've done a lot of work on it, and it's funny, like you said, you like to get that message of mental health out there. I've done a
mhm,
lot of self-reflection and a lot of I've looked for answers in other places
mhm,
because there's plenty of people that go through similar things, and I've always been confident. But on the flip side, I've always had that voice that's told me I have no reason to be confident. That's why when
mhm,
I come out looking confident but still kind of stressed,
mhm,
it's not like I'm pretending to be confident. I'm
mhm.
very confident. I know how hard I work. I know how hard I've prepared for things. But there's always been that voice that's like, "Oh, but you suck. Like, why are you confident? Like, you're terrible." And so I'm always battling that,
Mhm,
and as of late, it's just like understanding that I'm not going to get rid of that voice and that it's always going to be there, but it just
mhm.
doesn't matter. And everybody always says like, "Oh, don't listen to other people. It's just what you think of yourself." Well, that's not 100% true either, because some people might just have that voice telling them they suck when they know they don't. And so I'm done trying to fight that voice saying that I suck and I don't deserve to get good things coming to me, because it's always going to be there for whatever reason, but I just don't listen to it. And I make the other voice louder, the other voice that just keeps reminding me. Remember when you drove across the country in your bus 2 days after putting your dog down? Remember when you got that
Oh,
staph infection and still trained as hard as you could, even though you couldn't train at AKA? I was at like a commercial gym just lifting and walking. I didn't have the energy to run on the treadmill. I did like my little vlog while I was gone. I was like, I'm gonna go lift and run on the treadmill. I walked. I did max incline and walked and watched anime on my phone. I just didn't have the energy, but I did what I could, and like that is what I remind myself now. And so the other thing that you and me talked about at the press conference is I used to be so stressed about the stuff that was going to happen after the fight. As
mhm.
I was walking out, I was hanging around with a lot of people that were my friends.
Yeah.
And as I'm fighting, as I'm walking out, I'm like, oh, if I win, but I don't look so good, or I even lose, like, are they going to be there? Like, are they going to be like, oh, it's all right? Are they going to be my friends? And now I'm just like, I don't care. Like,
Mhm,
if you're not going to be there afterwards because I lost or I won and didn't look good, then I don't want you there when I win
mhm,
and do look good. And I know that all the people around me now, win, lose, draw, are still going to be there. And that thought doesn't even pass through my head when I walk out, doesn't pass through my head when I fight. Now I just go out there, and for that 15 to 25 minutes, I'm selfish. I'm like, it's about me getting my hand raised, because those people are going to be there win or lose. So I don't even have to think about them anymore.
mhm. Yeah, no, that's a powerful message, and I hope that other people are listening and understanding. And not everybody that's in your corner is actually in your corner, that they're actually there for you, that they are actually want the best for you. Sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I've seen people where they're really, really close to you, but it's not because they want to be there when you succeed. It's like they want the front row when you fail. And the thing is, you've gotten to this point where your goal right now is just to be better than who you were yesterday. And that's it. And that's
And the
all that
biggest
matters.
thing that I've realized lately, because I always, I missed weight my last fight, and I'll
Mhm.
say it as many times as I need to. I thought about setting it as like my Instagram bio, like has missed weight 3 times. And I realized why that pisses so many people off. When I own my mistakes, it reminds them that we come from the same place and
Yeah.
that they can own their mistakes too, and they choose not to. So when I own my mistakes and I'm like, oh, I messed up, no excuses, it's all my fault,
Mhm.
they'll come at me online and be like, you just make excuses and say it's everyone else's fault. And I'm like, isn't that the opposite of what I just said? Like,
Exactly.
it's all my fault, but I'm going to succeed and improve myself. Like, that's my favorite. Like, when I make mistakes, people are like, oh, it's a wrap. You should just retire and never fight again because like you missed your shot. And I'm like, I'm 26. Like, I went to the Ultimate Fighter finale a year, 2 years after I was able to legally drink. Like, some
Yeah.
guys are going to, like, years coming forward, there's going to be guys in the Ultimate Fighter finale that are 28,
Mhm.
29. I could get on another season of the Ultimate Fighter and get on the finale again. That's how young I
Mhm.
am. So it's just like, I've realized that when you're from a place that everybody can make it at whatever they're trying to do,
Mhm.
podcasting, media, any sport, whatever. When people are reminded that you're from the same place and that you are doing the correct things and they're not, it angers them. And I'm
Mhm.
not better than anybody, don't get me wrong, but like, I've tried to focus so much on doing the right things that when I do, that pisses people off,
Yeah.
because they're like, well, he made a mistake and he owned up to it and I'm not. So like, screw him. And it's like, I'm not saying you're a bad person for not owning up to your mistakes. I'm just trying to own up to mine.
Yeah. People have this sense of, there are a lot of people that have the sense of entitlement. and they feel that
I
it's
think I
like,
used to have that a little bit. Like when you work so hard for something, you almost feel like I deserve this. Like I work so hard for this. Like I should win this fight. I should get signed to the UFC. I should get this. I've definitely had that. But then it's almost like when you realize that you don't deserve any of it. Like if you're working so hard for one certain thing, like then you're just wasting the whole process. Like if you're just like the working hard and doing whatever it is, like that's your gift. You get to do
mhm,
that. And that's something like when I'm in California, which helped me carry out this last fight camp. Like I'm in California, like I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I don't want to fight. And then I got people on my Instagram and stuff like, dude, you're living at AKA training, training every day. Like you're living the dream. And I'm like, this is somebody's dream. Like this is like there is some amateur fighter or somebody that's a pro or somebody that doesn't even fight. Like, damn, I wish I could just be in a bus all day and train with the best guys in the world. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm so unappreciative. Like this is somebody's dream. So it's like when you just are like, no, the UFC, like that's it. That's why I deserve it. It's like, well, then you're wasting your time with everything else. Like you're not enjoying it. And that's something else that I've tried to put into my life is like UFC is great. I can't wait to be there one day. I can't wait to be running it. But for now, like I'm enjoying getting beat up by everybody at AKA.
what point did you realize that?
Not until fairly recently. So after my last loss at LFA, I just, I went in the back locker room. I was super upset, and I didn't. I cry for certain reasons after losses, and it's usually never the loss. It's usually either how I performed or something leading up to the fight.
Mhm,
I wasn't even crying after this one. I was just pissed. I ripped my gloves off, and I remember Justin came up to me, and we were in the back room, and he started yelling. And Justin, if you know, isn't an emotional person. He was
mhm,
like, "This is fucking crazy," like da 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 da. And I thought he was yelling at me, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then he looked at me, and he was like, "You need to go to California. You need to make some changes in your life." And I was like, I'm going to go over here real quick. And I went in the corner of the locker room and bawled my eyes out because I'm like, this guy who brought me in as a high school wrestler is like, I'm still here for you, but there's changes that you need to make. Like, you need to make these changes. And I bawled my eyes out. And I decided that night, I was like, okay, we're taking a year off from fighting and we're going to reevaluate everything. And
mhm,
we're going to change whatever needs to be changed physically, emotionally, financially. And it sucked and it was super hard.
mhm,
And even so, I almost to the exact year didn't fight. So I lost at LFA in October, and then I came back and fought at Cage Titans in August. So almost an exact year. About 6 months after that LFA fight, I was in some of the best shape of my life, and I felt like I was ready to fight again. And I was like,
mhm,
it's time, like, let's do it. And then I saw a couple people that I knew fight, and they got all this hype, and like their fights were all right. They won. They're buddies of mine. And I got like a little jealous, and I was like, am I jealous that my friends are like getting like hyped right now? Like, no, I'm obviously not ready to fight because I wanted the limelight. Like I didn't want to fight. I miss people talking about me. And that's not why I do this. So I was like, no, I'm not ready to fight. So I took another 6 months and then realized when I got the fight with Darius Estelle and everybody's tagging me like Joe's back, all this stuff, and I didn't care. I was like, okay, now I'm ready to fight because I don't care. I'm not here for the social media tags, the t-shirt pick, like, oh, I got his shirt. Like, it's cool when I see my fans represent me, don't get me wrong, but like
mhm,
I took too much weight into it. Like I took too much like positive posts. I was like, yeah, like that makes me feel good.
mhm,
And then the negative posts, I was like, damn, now I feel sad. Like I don't care anymore. So now
mhm.
when people talk shit, like especially when I feel like it's wrong, I'll call them on it and I'll have a conversation with them. And some people will think that I'm mad about it, but I promise you, I'm sitting here with a straight face when I type my reply on Facebook or something like positive or negative. It just bears no weight on my opinion of myself anymore.
You reached a point in your life that so many people wish they could be. Like that level of understanding and that level of, awareness, because it's like you were enlightened and now everything is just falling where it needs to be. And so many people, they're in their 50s and they're still trying to get where you're at mentally. So it shows. I mean, like literally, it shows. Like I told you at the at Table Titans, like you can tell, like
And it's not
everything.
easy. It's not easy. It's super hard because like sometimes the answers are so obvious and you're like, no, that can't be it. Like it'll be
Yeah.
like something as simple as like you don't think you have an ego in some little sort of way, and it's like, no, it's your ego. So like one thing that I've learned that hasn't been something, it affected me when I first started losing weight and working out, that I tell people all the time, because there's plenty of people that don't go to the gym to work out because they're self-conscious about themselves, and they're like, oh, everyone's going to be looking at me. I promise you, that's your ego. Everybody that's in there is either thinking the same thing or they don't care about you.
Yeah.
I promise you, there's 1 in a million people that'll actually look at you and go, what are they doing? And that's because they're insecure about themselves. Like when I started working out, I used to be so insecure, like, oh, everyone's going to look at me because I'm fat and out of shape. But it's like, we're all here for the same reason. And if anybody is looking at you like that, it's because they're thinking you're looking at them. Like nobody cares about you that much. And that's your ego thinking, oh, well, everybody cares about me. And when I explain that to people, some people get offended, like, I don't have an ego. And it's like, but you do. You think that a gym full of 100 people have all their eyes on you when you're first getting into working out. They don't. And it's not like you're a bad person, but that's a little bit of ego that you need to control and realize nobody gives a shit that I'm here because I'm here for me. And that's little things like that is just stuff that I've looked into in so many different ways. And like, it sounds corny, but like I used to never read, and I've started picking up certain books and reading books that just like, it just makes sense. And I have to reread them. Like I read very fast, but it takes me a minute to like actually soak everything in. So like I'll read a book in like a couple days and I'll be like, what's this book about? So then I got to read it 2 or 3 more times. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
How much pressure were you putting on yourself?
Last weekend or just in life?
In life, because
way too much.
Yeah.
Way too much. And it's funny because my girlfriend said something to me last week, because we communicate like with her family and my family, like, I'm in shape, but like I'm heavier than I want to be this fight week. So her family's nervous now, like, is Joe going to make weight? And they're bombarding her, like, is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? And she's like, listen, whether he makes weight or not, my life is not going to change. Like, she's still got to go to work and teach those kids. She's got a second job at a country club. She's still got to go be a bartender over there. Like, whether I make weight or not is not going to affect her sleep. And like, to some people might be like, oh, she doesn't care. And it's like, no, she cares just enough to control what she can. Like, she knows I'm eating good. She knows I'm doing all the right things. She knows all the crap I had to go through. But like, at the end of the day, it's like, there's no pressure on me from her. She's like, you got to do what you got to do. Even after I missed the weight, she's like, it sucks. Like, you had to give him your whole show purse. Like, you're down $1,000, but like, it is what it is. Like, you can't go back and change it. And I used to put all that on top of me, like without anybody saying anything. I used to be like, oh, I gotta win this fight to win this fight to get to the UFC, to buy so-and-so this and do that. And now I'm like, well, I don't have to. I just want to. Like, I would love to run it in the UFC and, buy my dad a house in not like a Lamborghini, but like a Toyota Camry that he can drive that's not going to fall apart, just a comfortable lifestyle. Yeah. I still do want that, but I realized I don't need that, and he doesn't need that. And if I never get that for him, he'll love me all the same. And for the longest time, I put that on myself that wasn't the case. I was like, no, I need to do this, but I don't.
Yeah. Wow, you're just full of all this knowledge.
It was a long year off. I went like full like Spirit Quest, like Vision Quest type thing. Like, yeah, I had to. I was just, after that last LFA loss, I was just in such a bad place. And the thing is like, so many people that were around me that aren't around me anymore might not even know that, because they never cared enough to learn. And and now everybody is like, oh, you look great last weekend. Oh, hey, da 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 da. And it's like, yeah, but you guys didn't care when I was in such a terrible, terrible place. Yeah. And like, some people, honestly, they would just, I was disrespected. I wasn't treated what I think I'm worth. And I wasn't going to argue with somebody and be like, no, I'm worth this. You should treat me like that. I was like, I'm just going to go be the best version of me and make you want to be around me. And by then, I don't want to be near you. And that's kind of like what's happening. And, like I stream on Twitch when I play video games and stuff. And I am far from a world-class video game player. I just like to kick back and hang out with my friends. But I have people that jump into the chat, and they, I had one buddy that I met through video games. He lives in Australia. Australia has been tough with COVID and everything. And his job, he was on the computer 12 hours a day for 2 weeks looking for a job. Places would say they were hiring. He'd get interviews, and then they wouldn't hire anybody. Yeah. And he was getting super depressed about it. And, he's trying to get into shape, and he's like got no money. So stuff like that, like we talk about, and then he talks about like friends that don't hit him up anymore. And I was like, listen, dude, first of all, you need to get a job and focus on you. You know that. But who cares about them? Just do what you got to do. Get in shape, get your job, get your money. Your girl's going to be with you no matter what. Because
Yeah.
I actually one day played video games with her because he was like sick or something. And I was like, she's going to be with you no matter what. And I was like, and when you get your shit together, those people are just going to gravitate towards you. And then you get the option to be like, nah, I'm good. And
Exactly.
and that's what I tell everybody is like, I forget what, like, even McGregor talked about it before he went off the rails, like the law of attraction. Like
Yes.
you attract people towards you, and that never made sense to me. And I
Hmm.
had to do a little bit of research on that. And I always thought it was just like how he talks about, like, I'm going to be the champ, I'm going to make money, and then it
Hmm.
happens. But no, it's people too. Like, why do you think everybody loves Conor McGregor? And like when he walks down the street, they take pictures because he's Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
And as much I don't like the guy personally, but as much as the shit he does, people like him and they want to be near him. That
Yeah.
literally anybody can do that. You get any form of success, people will want to be around you. I've got people that I can't stand that want to be around me, and I'm just like, no, I'm good. Because when I was when I was losing fights and wasn't in a good place mentally and wanted you around me, you wanted nothing to do with me. And it's like, now that the roles reverse a little bit, I've worked on my mental health and some other things. Now everybody wants to be cool with me. I'm like, you don't see it, but I see it, and I'm just good with that. Like,
Mhm.
that's, you're messing with my peace, and my peace is number one for me.
That is awesome because a lot of people kind of forget that, you know, the negativity, people being toxic, people just
Mm-hmm.
sucking and draining the life out of you, and they want to shine because you're shining, but if you're not shining, then they're no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a toll on a person because these are supposed to be the people that we turn to and we depend on. And it's not depending on financially or anything like that, but it's just like the moral support. And then you realize that the
100%.
people that were supposed to be there for you were the ones that didn't really care for you. They were just looking for either for you to win so they could win, or just for you to fail so they can just go on to the next person that they could
And
feed
that was
off of.
something that I didn't realize either. I always thought that like the leeches would always be like,
Mm,
for money or for clout, but it's
no.
like it can literally just be emotionally. Like they could just be
Yes.
like your number one, they're always there for you until shit goes sideways, and then
Yep.
it's like you can't even get a text back or they don't even reach out to you. Like there's plenty of people that I would text and hang out with all the time that I sent them, I forget when it was, but it was in my year off from fighting. I picked a day, I
Yep.
texted everybody that I wanted in my life, and whoever answered, they're in my life still. Whoever didn't, I don't put any effort into it.
Hmm.
So like we may talk in passing every once in a while, but like we don't hang out, and I don't hit them up. And they might be thinking now like, oh well, Joe doesn't hit me up, and I'm like, well, I did my time. I hit you up multiple times, and never once did I get a response, not even a question to make plans. So the people I don't talk to and hang out with now, I don't put effort in. And they very well could come back into my life if consistent effort is shown and I feel like
Hmm.
it's genuine. But there's so many people that I don't even think realize they're not in my life anymore. They just think that we're cool, and it's like I haven't seen you in so long for a reason because my effort is now matching your effort, and
Yep.
it's none.
Yeah, and it's, unfortunately people don't realize it. They think that they can hurt you and they can act whatever they want and you're always gonna accept it. And
Mm-hmm.
you are actually showing people that, how they say like a person will treat you as much as you allow them to,
100%.
and you're not allowing it anymore. Like
100%.
before, you were so focused and so, your mind was on training and doing this and doing that, and that you didn't notice a lot of these things. And once things settled down, you were able to figure it out because at your lowest moment, where you had all these goals and everything, and at that moment, because my lowest moment may not be your lowest moment,
Exactly.
so whatever that was for you, that's when you notice all these people. And it's not just about winning all the time. It's not just about the fights. It's about your day-to-day life,
Mm-hmm.
where who knows if anybody was there for you, checking on you, when you had the loss of your dog and you were traveling, like, so you were dealing with that. You were dealing with being on your own in an area that you really don't know people, so you're grieving because losing a pet is that's part of your family, you know what I mean?
100%.
So a lot of people don't get that, so what you've gone through, and you've survived, and you keep you know overcoming every obstacle that's been coming your way, and it shows like in everything in your day-to-day life, not just in the cage, and you can see it. And that's something that I hope people understand, that it doesn't happen overnight. It's not that you woke up one morning and you said, you know what, and I have enlightenment, you know what, I'm gonna do the law of attraction. It's hard work. As much work that you put into fighting in your fight camp, that's exactly what you're doing in your personal life, for your mindset, for your mental health, because everything comes together. If your mind isn't clear, you're not going to be able to put two and two together. Like all the pieces are there, but it's sometimes it's like it's right in front of me, it's right in front of me. But until you take a step back
Hmm.
and then come back to it, that's when everything falls into place. So I hope people are realizing that what you've done has results, positive results.
You can't force it, because even before, like,
Hmm.
I always just mention, like, when I take my time off from fighting,
Hmm.
that's when it all happened. um I was trying to make these improvements, and I was trying to force them. And, like I said, people that were disrespecting me and not valuing
Hmm.
my time, I wasn't just like matching their effort. I was making it a point, be like, no, screw you. You don't treat me how I should be treated. And it wasn't the way to do it, because then they took it like, oh, well, he thinks he's so good. Like, I should be around him. But now it's just like, no, I'm going to match their energy. I'm going to
Hmm.
put as much effort as they put in. And now, if they start to realize, like, Joe doesn't really hit me up, like, Joe doesn't ever try to talk to me or hang out with me. And if they ask me, I'll say, well, that's how you've been for the last so many days, so many years.
Hmm.
And they're like, oh, shit. And I've tried, like I said, all these things that are now coming to fruition, like, I've tried to do, but I did it the wrong way, and I tried forcing it. Um, and now it's just like I'm just letting pieces fall where they need to. And as far as fighting and mental health, like, the most improvement that I saw was when I was actually training less when I took that time off from fighting. I was still training that entire
Hmm.
time, but before I took the time off from competing, I was training every day except for Sundays, once or twice a day whenever I could while working. And then when I took that time off, I would skip training sessions, and I was improving more. Like, I would
Hmm.
train Monday through Friday twice a day. Then I would train once on Saturday, and then sometimes, if I felt good, once on Sunday. And then that next Monday, when I should be training, I'd wake up and I wasn't feeling it. And I was like, it doesn't feel right. And I was like, you know what? I'll push through anyways. And then nothing would get done.
Hmm.
So then the next day, I was like, no, I'm not feeling it today. I would skip it. I would skip the training session. My body was sore. My head wasn't in it. And then the next day when I went back, I was like, all right, like, I feel good. Like, I'm ready to go. And the work that I got done the day after taking that rest made up for it, and then some, the day I missed,
Hmm.
because I was moving with purpose. I was moving with intent instead of just like going through the motions. And I feel like after doing all that, I realized that I had been just going through the motions for a couple of years. Like, I think all those, like, 2-3 years after the finale, I
Yeah.
was just going through the motions and doing what I thought I was supposed to do, instead of just doing every little thing with a reason.
Do you remember doing any of it, or it was just because you've been doing it for so long?
I remember where my headspace was at when I was doing it. And I just, like I said, I'm like, okay, Mondays I grapple, and then I do kickboxing. And I was just like almost just too used to the schedule.
Hmm.
But, as of late, it's like, okay, I lift in the morning, I do my cardio, I go grapple at night. But, if I deadlift Monday morning and my back doesn't feel too good, then I'm not grappling tonight. I'll go
Hmm.
back into my garage and I'll hit the bag and I'll do bike, more cardio. I'm always working, but I'm listening to my body now,
Hmm.
and I'm listening to my mental space. If I have a shitty day at work and I already worked out today and it's time to train again and it's time to grapple, and I'm like, okay, well, if I go get beat up in grappling, am I gonna be happy when I go home tonight? And if the answer is no, then I'm not going to grapple. And to some people, it sounds like, oh, well, he's not pushing himself. And it's like, oh no, trust me, I have plenty of days I
Hmm.
get beat up, but I get beat up when I can handle it, because some days you just can't handle it. I only sparred twice when I was at AKA this last camp. My last day of sparring. So I had my first day at AKA I sparred, and then my second to last day at AKA I sparred. And the second to last day, I felt terrible, mentally, physically, whatever. And I sparred anyways, and I did 2 rounds instead of 3. Got my ass kicked the whole time, probably through a total of like 4 punches. And afterwards, Javier was like, why did you go in there and spar? Because he had literally just talked about in a team huddle, if you don't feel like sparring, tell us. We will not force you to spar. And especially if you're injured. And
Yeah.
he was like, why did you go spar? And I was like, I feel like shit. I feel terrible, but I still have to fight next weekend. I was like, I'm not injured, so it's not like I was hiding it from you. I just don't feel good. I go, but I needed to know what I could do feeling this terrible. And I know I just got my
Hmm.
ass kicked for 2 rounds. And he even said to me, we had another team huddle like we do after every training session. And he was like, listen, I got no problem if you guys want to spar. when you're not feeling it or you feel a little ill or whatever it is, or run down, because I wasn't sick. I was just run down and the medicine was kicking my ass. But he was like, lower your expectations. And that's all I did. Is even on fight night, I wanted to do my best, but I knew I wasn't going to do what I did when I fought Darius because of everything that had happened. And that training session, that sparring session might have been the make or break of why I won that fight, because I knew what to expect feeling as bad as I did. And Javier even said, he was like, I respect it. You needed to see what you could do feeling like shit, but just don't expect to get your 100% when you're feeling 30%. And that's something I did on fight night, is I just made do with what I had.
On fight night, did it go the way you expected it to go? Like the way you were training and everything?
No, absolutely not. And I've watched the fight back twice, and now that, all the BS and the drama is all gone, I'm not happy with my performance at all. Like, the only part of it that I'm happy with is that I did perform feeling so poorly. But like I told a couple people, even walking out, you guys caught me. Like, everybody kept saying, I had a couple people say, as you walked out, you didn't look at me. You barely looked at your team when you gave him a hug. You just kept looking at Bond and you kept looking in the cage. Like, I've never seen you look that focused. You guys caught me in the middle of literally hypnotizing myself, of like shutting everything off, I didn't hear anybody in that arena. I didn't hear my coaches, nothing. And I only saw Bond. I only saw the cage, like a movie, like the backlight just drops. And I was in the middle of hypnotizing myself that no matter how shitty you feel, they're going to shut the door behind you and it's not going to matter. He's going to be trying to take your head off and you have to return fire. And I was just so jumbled and messed up in the head and couldn't get my body to feel like ready to go, that I decided, I was like, we're going to get to the center of the cage and we're going to brawl and we're going to throw down, and you're not going to stop throwing until he's on the floor, because he's going to have to knock me out to finish me. I knew I wasn't going to quit. I knew that I could push through whatever pain he could put me through. And I just told myself, I go, we're going to shut our brain off and let our instincts take the way. Because I've trained for almost 10 years now, I know how to fight. And the only thing that could have stopped me that night is if he knocked me out or I didn't perform because mentally I was thinking a million different things that didn't matter. And that was honestly the only knock my corner had on me in between rounds, was like, you're doing great, stop brawling. And I was like, no, I literally said, I was like, I'm trying. I was like, but I have to. And they're like, what? And like at one point, Tyler's yelling. He's like, you got to throw that elbow. That elbow's there the whole time. I was like, I don't have the range. I'm just going to step in and hit him with the left hand, because that was the only thing that made sense. Was every time I started to think, every time he lands a punch in that fight, I was starting to get technical, which against Darius would be great. But my body and my mentality wasn't in a place to be technical. Every time I tried to be technical, I was a step behind. Like, my brain was a step behind where it should have been. So every time we brawled, I was throwing to take his head off. And I was like, I know that unless he catches me clean and knocks me out, I'm winning this fight. And that's what happened. Not a knock on him, but like, I'm watching that fight back, and the commentary is like, the leg kick. Like, and by the fourth round, their tone changed. They were like, how is Joe walking on his leg? Like, he doesn't even look like it hurts, because it didn't. I don't know. I shut the pain receptor in my leg off or something, and I knew it would suck the next day. That I never doubted. But in that moment, I was like, you're going to have to kick me a lot harder than that to see something wear. And, I was just able to wear him down before he could wear me down. And that's just instinct. There's no technique. There's no nothing on that. I just had to shut my brain off and let my instincts take over.
What would you change about that fight if you could go back?
If I could go back, if we're talking like just that night, or we're talking the whole camp, if I could get a proper fight camp in and be, who I was on the Darius Estelle fight night, I make weight, which would make me a little bit more comfortable in the headspace. And I would warm up a little closer to my fight, especially if we're fighting in the cold, so that I could feel smooth and ready to go by the time I step in the cage. And, I pick them apart, and I do what I did to Darius. And especially after that fight, I have a lot that I'm going to fix by the time we rematch, but I have a lot of confidence when we do run it back that I think I'm going to get him out of there a lot faster. And it's not a knock on him. I just think it's funny that everybody's like, that's such a great fight. That's such a great fight. It could have been his worst night as well, but I can promise that was my worst night. And on my best night, I take care of that fight a lot quicker.
When you were cutting weight, now, how much of that, okay, it's going to sound weird because it's like you were cutting weight, but how much weight did it weigh on you? You know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
How much did it affect me mentally? Yeah. A lot. Just because I don't like to miss weight. And as much as somebody will tell you, Joe misses weight all the time, I've missed weight 3 times. Once on 10 days notice across the globe when I didn't even have a passport and I got it overnighted. Another time at LFA when the fight got booked 3 weeks out. Should I have been lighter prior to taking the fight? Of course I should have. But, if we're talking numbers, it was also a 3-week camp. And then this one, which granted, I knew the fight was going to happen after my last fight. So that was just a matter of timing. And like I said, it didn't affect me as much as I thought it would, but still a lot. I think that if my weight cut went any worse, you would have seen a much worse performance. I don't know if I could have battled through that. But the biggest thing was I'll say it. I said it then and I'll say it now. I know I messed up. It was my fault. I mistimed it. But I also know that with a little bit more time, I would have easily made the weight. Usually by the time I get to 160 pounds, sweating is very hard. I'm working, but I'm not sweating as much. We were sitting in that sauna and I was pouring sweat and I was like, oh, I've got this all day. Like 5 more pounds, like let's do it. And I wasn't, and I hate saunas. And normally I'm like, oh, this sucks. Like I can't breathe. Da da da. I was fine. I was like, all right, like we got this. Big thing. I was controlling my breathing. I was like, I'm good. I was making conversation and joking with guys. Even Tyler was in there like, damn, you are sweating. And I was like, yeah, like let's just keep it going. And then I ran out of time and it is what it is. I mistimed it. But that thought, knowing that I could make the weight, saved me in a way because I'm like, it's not like I was some asshole that was not dieting, not trying to cut the weight. I did everything I could and I made a mistake. And I know that those 5 pounds that I missed were all water. So it's not like it was 5 pounds of muscle, 5 pounds of fat. Like it didn't change the way that fight played out. Like I won that fight because of me. Bond lost that fight because of how it went. Like the weight had nothing to do with how that fight ended. And it did really mess with my head, but not as bad as it could have.
Yeah.
I had a post typed up and I didn't post it, but I have an appreciation post for Johnny Cupcakes. He messaged me around like 3:00 on fight night. And I had bumped into him once during fight week while I was out selling tickets, and we haven't spoken since before I left for California. And we were shooting the shit, and then he messages me out of the blue. I think I took a nap that day, and I wake up to a message from him. And he was like, hey, man, all BS aside, none of it matters tonight. Like, your only goal is to go out there and win that fight. You don't have to worry about articles or bullshit or shit talk. Your only job tonight is to go out there and win your fight. Focus on that. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like reading it, and I read it like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, and I already knew that. But for some reason, him saying it to me, like, I look up to Johnny. I always have. And seeing him say it, I was like, you know what? He's right. Like, as much as it pisses me off that some people are skewing the truth, some people are just running with it and spreading lies, and some people are rightfully so pissed off at me, it doesn't matter. I have a job to do. My job is to go get my hand raised. And that's what I focused on for the rest of the night. And that was it. Make do with what you got. None of that matters. Go get your hand raised. And that's what we did. And I even said to him afterwards at the bar, I was like, hey, man, thank you. Like, I know that might have just been like in passing to you, like, oh, I'm just going to wish him good luck. But like that message really meant a lot to me, and it helped out a ton.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, you've changed. Like you're listening to your body. You're understanding when you should do certain things. Now, you mentioned before that you sparred, but you didn't spar as much. How important, after all of these fights that you've done, how important do you feel sparring is before a camp?
If you do it right, I think it's important. So when I'm not at AKA, you can call it sparring, but like I don't spar. I don't believe in hard sparring. Even when I'm at AKA, I only do hard sparring once a week, if that. And it's the only thing that the coaches at AKA and I disagree on. They're older school guys. They've raised tons of champions. But it is the only thing that I'll really put my foot down on, where especially the closer you get to a fight, I don't believe in it. The only reason that I did it right before I left California is because I hadn't done it all camp. And like I said, I was just like, I feel so terrible. I need to know what it's going to feel like when I get in there feeling this terrible. Because I knew I was going to feel terrible. And I needed to know how to plan the fight out, how it's probably going to go, because I feel so bad. And I did. I was able to have such 2 terrible sparring rounds before they were like, yeah, you don't need a 3rd round. Get out of there. And then it was really cool just that they know, because they're at the end of the day, it's one of those things where like they're there for me and they care about me, but they're like, hey, if you don't want to spar and you lose, like if we think you sparring will help you win fights and you don't want to do it, you're the one that's got to lose the fights. Like you're the one that's going to go out there and lose. And I respect that, because like as much as it's like I'm representing AKA, They're training me. They're helping me. They understand at the end of the day, I get in there, I take the punches, I take the losses. So
Yeah.
it's like I get that say because I do not run my own fight camps. But that one thing, I'll always put my foot down. I don't think sparring's that important, especially the more experienced you are. You know, guys like Max Holloway don't spar. Stephen Thompson doesn't spar. Cowboy doesn't spar. Robbie Lawler doesn't spar. And it's like, how long have these guys been fighting? They've been punched in the face plenty. They've seen everything. They know what they can do. And, you know, if I ever have a fight camp like this again where everything goes sideways, I probably won't spar because I had my 2 rounds and I know what I'm made of when everything is against me. So overall, sparring's not super important when you're experienced. When you're first starting out, you need to spar lightly and safely. Intent is a big thing. You know, some guys spar a little too hard because they're dumb. Some guys spar hard because they want to knock out sparring partners. Stay away from those guys. It's not going to make them better and it's not going to make you better. But I think sparring is an overused tool as far as training.
I was just going to ask you, like, what level of sparring, but you already answered my question.
It's a big topic that I talk about all the time, and I know everybody's different, but I'm always an advocate for, like, you don't have to spar. Like I said, especially when you get more experience, you just don't need it. And some people are like, oh, I need to know what it feels like to be in a fight. And I don't agree until this last camp where I felt so terrible, and I've never fought feeling so terrible. So I do somewhat get that. I'm like, oh, I feel bad. I need to know what it's going to be like to fight feeling this bad. And I got that experience in, but it's not like I'm going to want to do that every week.
Exactly. Now, the pressure of weight cutting was one thing, you know, just because you were dealing with staph infection, you were dealing with, you know, preparing yourself for, you know, weigh-ins. But you were also, the week before, you were the co-main event, and then you became the main event. Did that add any more pressure to you?
Not really. So my second to last fight, it would have, because I think that these last 2 fights are my only 2 main event wins. I could be wrong, but I think that I've either lost or drawn every other Cage Titans main event. So before my time off, I was like, damn, I never want to be a Cage Titans main event ever again. Like, I'm just bad luck. And then, you know, that was like another thing. Like, I'm as more than I'd like to be, I'm superstitious. That's also a big reason why I usually never have the same fight shorts on twice in a row. That was another thing. My fight shorts didn't come for my fight. So they got lost in the mail. And so I ended up using my fight shorts from last time. Another thing where I was like, I don't use the same fight shorts. So I was going against that. I was like, all right, we're using the same shorts. But like my last fight against Darius, I was like, we're going to break this. Like, we're going to win a main event. Like, because this shit doesn't matter. I've trained too hard for a superstition to matter whether I win or lose. So I broke that. And then this time I wore the same shorts again and we broke that. So it's just like little mental wins. Like, okay, it doesn't matter. I'm training way too hard for this little stupid stuff to matter. So the main event was just cool this time around. Last time I was a little nervous about it, but now I'm like, yeah, like let's do all the main events we can.
You're ready now.
Yeah, except for like the fact that I get to the bar so late that it's like I get 2 drinks, then they close. But like other than that, being a main event's pretty cool.
You've been training at AKA. Will this be from now on? Like, will you be training at AKA from now on for your fight camps?
For my fight camps, yes. And it's very difficult, and it comes with its costs. And like, so the cost is I won't be able to fight as much as I'd like to. So it's super expensive. So like this fight camp, one way on gas was $1,200. The next way home was another $1,200. And then something that people underestimate while I'm gone is, you know, I have a generator that I have on the back of my bus. I have like a mini backup battery that's solar powered, you know, just to power like my phone, and I bring my Xbox, stuff like that. So like I pay for gas for those things, and I have my solar power. I have a propane tank for my stovetop in the bus. But something people underestimate is while that's happening, I have bills at home. I've got my electric bill, my gas bill, my cable, my rent. And, you know, my girlfriend I love her to death. She helps me out as much as she can, and she'll cover little things that I can't cover. But like that stuff does wear on my mental and my financial while I'm gone. So it's like, everybody's like, damn, that's crazy. Like gas there and back, you spent almost $3,000, and then you spent money while you were there. And I'm like, oh, no. And on top of that, I've got my regular monthly bills, and I'm not making any money while I'm in California. I don't work because it's hard to go to somewhere you're going to only be for 8 weeks and be like, hey, can I have a part-time job? But I can only work like 4 hours a day, about 4 days a week. And then I'm gone for a couple of months. They'd be like, get out.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why I always say, I've said it after my Darius fight, and I'll say it again. Not just me, but any fighter, getting tickets from the guys you or girls you want to support is super important.
Mhm.
Getting their merch, whether you're ever going to wear the shirt or not, if you want to support them and you just don't know how, buy the merch. Sponsors. If you have a business or you have a side hustle and you want to support guys and girls, sponsor them. Whether it's $100, $1,000, whatever. Like every little bit matters. Buying something cool that Cage Titans does. Buying the pay-per-views with our last names, the code, that helps. I think they do like a little donation thing when you
Mhm.
buy pay-per-views. Like every single dollar helps, and I can promise you that because when I'm in California, I'm counting every dollar that I'm spending
Mhm.
because I know when I leave California, I'm dropping another $1,200. So support your fighters every way you can, even in the littlest amounts. I promise you, it means the world. Um, but unfortunately for me, I would fight every Cage Titans card. I would be fighting on the 25th if I could get these stitches out and get cleared. I would be fighting April, June, August, November. But it costs so much to go out to AKA. I'm financially not in a place where I can do that
Mhm.
that many times a year. So I'm going to be training at AKA for all my future fights. Unfortunately, I won't be able to fight every month like I'd like to.
Mhm.
But if that's the only downside, I can live with that. That just means I get to go to more Cage Titans as a fan, which is way less stressful. But it also means when I do fight, you guys have a good show in store.
Yeah, but you don't fight, but you also corner people.
Yeah, that sucks. I hate cornering people. Like I'm not deterring anybody that needs a corner. Not anybody, but anybody that is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I will gladly corner you. But like if I ever look stressed, I'm not doubting you. It's just I get way more stressed cornering than I do fighting. Because like the way I explain it to people is like when you're playing like a fighting video game
Yes.
and your controller dies and it's not doing what you're saying, that's how I feel in the corner sometimes. And I'm like, just do what I said. And then when they start losing, I want to get in there. Like, let me fight that guy.
It's too funny. It's true though. It's like people
It's
don't
so stressful.
understand. But then you get do you have to stay backstage with them, or can you
You can
just
roam. You
go?
you can roam and do what you want, but I always ask people like what they prefer. Like me personally, like when I'm in the locker room, I
Mhm.
have two modes. Up until like two fights before me, I'm joking around like I'm not even fighting tonight.
Mhm.
Like some people will be looking at me like he knows he's fighting, right?
Yeah.
But then you catch me like two fights before my fight, I'm punching myself in the face. I'm death staring the TV, like waiting for them to show a highlight of my opponent just so I
Mhm.
can mean mug him. Like I'm just getting in that zone. Some people are different. Some people like they need you there with them, joking with them to keep them from
Yeah.
getting stressed. Some people need you there with them to be like, you're the best. You're the best. Nobody's seen anybody like you. Like they can't handle you. So everybody's different. I cornered Spencer Higo when he fought Peter
Yeah.
Barrett. And I was like, bro, anything you need. You need me here all night? I got you. You want me to stay the hell away from you till fight time? Like, let me know. And he was like, bro, go do what you got to do. I'm just going to sit here. And he's super Hawaiian. I'm just going to sit here and hang out. And, if you want to come back up, like maybe two fights before mine, and then we'll start just moving around a little bit. I was like, okay. So I went and I hung out and watched the fights. And then I was like, all right, we got two more fights. I'll be in the locker room. And I went up and helped him. But it all depends on what the fighter wants. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think that's something that I don't corner too much, but I do corner. I think that's something that corners don't do a lot is they're just like, this is how we do things. And it's like, well, you're not fighting. Your guy is fighting. You need to do what he needs to do.
Exactly.
So, like even when Spencer lost, like a couple people came up to me after the fight and they were like, you went in there and you shook Pete's hand, right? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, I thought I'd never see that. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, you two don't get along. And I was like, no. Me as a fighter and Pete don't get along. Me as a person and Pete don't get along.
Exactly.
But I'm in there as a corner. I'm not the light's not on me. It's on him and Spencer. So like he just beat my guy. Like, yeah, good job. Like I wrestled in high school and then I went back and volunteered and coached. Like I saw my friends compete against kids that I beat and kids that beat me. And after they won and lost, I still had to shake those kids' hands and be like, good job. And they were like, didn't I just pin you last season? And I'm like, yeah, that was me. But it's like, and I don't want to, but like you're there as a coach. You're not there as a fighter. If I was fighting Pete, I'd be like, yeah, what's up? Let's fight. But I'm in there coaching Spencer. So when he loses, I go in there, yeah, good fight. You won, bro. And it was funny. Even Pete kind of looked like, and like shook my hand. And I was like, I'm in here as a coach, bro. I'm just doing coach duties.
Coach duties. That is too funny. What can we expect from you after you heal?
Improvement. in fights. If I can come out of fights, nothing like this ever again. If I can go back to coming out unscathed, like I said, as long as I can financially afford it, I will be back at AKA as much as I can in fighting as much as I can. Um, but like I always tell people, improvement. That's all, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as much as my performance wasn't better than my fight with Darius, I did improve because I was able to
Mm-hmm.
perform like that after such shitty preparation. And that's a more of a personal win for me than it is for even a win in the cage. And I don't know what the improvements will be next time, but there will be improvements, and I will be better next time, whether it be emotionally, financially, physically, technically. There will be something better. And I'm just gonna keep winning and doing what I got to do. And like I had people before this fight and even after this fight, like, oh, when's Dana calling? Like, how many more till Dana?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, who cares? Like, Dana's gonna call when Dana wants to call, and I would rather him call later than sooner and have me go to 0-2 or 2-2 and be right back at Cage Titans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like I tell people all the time, like Julian Erosa, he just fought in the UFC. He got like a fight of the night and performance of the night bonus. He has been cut from the UFC twice. This is his third time re-signed with the UFC, and he's now like 3-0 on this run, and he's winning bonuses. And I'm like, good for him, but like he's trusting the process. And I tell people that all the time. Like, as much as I would do that, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get cut from the UFC twice. I tell people all the time, the next time I get signed to the UFC, whether that's tomorrow or that's 2 years from now, there is no when he gets cut. I'm going to run it, and I want to make sure that I'm good enough to run the lightweight division when I do get signed. So I'm in no rush, because when I get there, I'll be ready to get there, and we'll take over.
I think you're doing a great job with the new process and everything, and you will get everything that you desire when it's time. When you're
Exactly.
ready for it, you will get it, because you don't want to do something that is going to set you back.
And
Like
there's
you
been
said.
plenty of times I thought I was ready, and then immediately I'm like, oh, maybe not yet. And
Mhm.
even this last fight camp, like I forced it. Bond took the fight. Bond saved the fight. We made our agreements. I tell people I had a little bit of a part in saving this fight because I very, very badly wanted to pull out.
Mhm.
But I did what I could to make the fight happen, and I missed the weight. But before that, I was like, I'm going to beat Bond, and then I'm ready. Well, I need to be ready to make this weight on my worst fight camp. It was cool
Mhm.
that I was able to perform and do as good as I did on such shitty preparations and with everything going on outside of fight camp. But now I need to be able to, if this happens again, perform like that, if not better, and make the weight. So there are still improvements to be made, and there will always be improvements. So once again, I'm not ready yet, but I'm on my way and I'm in the right direction.
Yes, you're moving forward, and that's all that matters. Do you have any advice that you would like to share with amateur fighters or even new professional fighters?
For the new pros, you guys, if your goal is, I don't know what your goal is. If it's to be the best in the world or it's to be financially stable just from fighting, then understand that you are a business. Understand that, there are going to be people just like any other business that are here just to get some money out of you. There's going to be people here just to ride the coattails to the top. And there's going to be people that will screw you over that you would never see coming. So protect your money, protect your peace, and really pay attention to who's around you. And if you get to the point where you're like, oh, I'm good enough to make the UFC and, just train and just fight, start an LLC, start a business, write everything off, make sure that everything that goes towards your fighting is a tax write-off. Make it your business. Your life can be your business, and focus on getting that financial freedom. As a fighter who makes almost no money, I make money, but I break even most of the time with all the money I spend preparing for fights.
Yeah.
Make sure that come tax season, you can get a little put back in your pocket to either catch up on bills or put away for the next fight camp. Amateurs, you guys need to focus on selling tickets, getting sponsors, getting merch, because you don't get paid to fight. If you're doing it just to do it, like you're a psycho like Brennan Boats and you just want to fight people because you're a jacked old dude, you're just a savage. I got no advice for you. And you got a Five Guys shirt. I already bought one because I'm getting one. But yeah, focus on your piece and focus on getting better. And if you are good enough, you will make the UFC. So don't stress it.
And if people would like to sponsor or buy merchandise, how would they?
If you would like to buy merchandise, you can go to GiannettiMMA.com. It's GIANNETTIMMA.com. 2 N's, 2 T's. That's what gets everybody. And then if you want to sponsor me, you can just hit me up on any social media at Giannetti MMA, or you can email me at giannetti@gmail.com. Like I said, if you're a small business and you're like, oh, I can't give them a certain amount of money, don't. Give me what you can and we'll work something out. I like to support your local businesses. This is Bostonian Barbershop, Maddie the Barber. Support your local barbershop. I love supporting small business, especially when they're on my side and they're rooting for me. So we could work something out. We'll both win out of this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No problem. I hope that everybody that watched it got a different insight on me, and maybe you hate me a little less. Maybe you hate me a little more. I'll sleep fine either way, but hope you got a little insight.
It's a love-hate relationship, but you're doing amazing.